This is my favorite part of the day. Good morning, this is Paul with Hot and Humid Hydroponics. It's 7 a.m. and it is first week in November, and I am just doing a review right as sun comes up and dews on the leaves, and you can just see how gorgeous it looks like this, and the flowers are just opening up from the other night. You can see the change from the overnight growth if you really pay attention. There's two times I usually like to check on my plants. Right now, and when it gets dark outside. In the morning, you could see if there's any problems or any changes in the new growth. I know this is kind of seems a little bit detailed or over the top for anybody who gardens. But if I see something early in the morning, like a fungus or something that's just out of sorts, or if something grew overnight that started creating too much weight, I could trellis it, because this plant's going to get much softer in the day heat. If it's bending in the morning, it's probably going to be bent on its, it's on like almost like a full 90 degrees come the daytime temps, because just warmer creates less stiffness in the branches. They a little bit more dehydrated, and low in the hold, they have a tendency to snap. So it kind of helps things out, especially if you haven't looked at it in a day or two. Like this one right here, he's kind of leaning against that, but I will eventually run trellises here. And in the evening, when it's dark outside, I'll run a spotlight, and that's when I can usually see my pests, like my worms and so forth. All this green will camouflage so much, but around the dusk to almost evening time frame, I can spray on some bug spray and come out here and venture and see a little more than I normally could see in the daylight. So why do I not look during the day? Well, when the sun is super bright outside, there's always like this general glare. People don't realize there's a lot of glare in your life, and so with the exception of having some polarized glasses, which may or may not help, I feel that, like for example, when it comes to tomato hornworms that are a variance of the green that is here, during the daytime they're almost possible to see, but right at dusk, if you brought out a headlamp, you could see how light green, how bright green they are versus your plants. So I like to look for tomato hornworms at night. I like to look at worms in general at night because I can see them better because of the contrast. The other reason why I like coming out in the morning, it's peaceful, it's quiet. My day has not typically started with a bunch of drama, family, work, life in general. So I'm far more vigilant about what I see. Now, since I'm here, a lot of people always ask, Paul, do you trim your plants? What do you do? Now, if you looked at my 2015 videos, you just saw these plants bushing out crazy everywhere, and they'll get there, but probably in about a month. But the biggest thing that I do is I typically try to keep the bottom trimmed up now, and I try to trim the inside. I got to go through another haircut round. I just did one last weekend, but I'll go back here again and do it. But I trim up where I need, but I don't sucker. I sucker when I'm trying to propagate plants and give away more tomatoes, but ultimately I don't trim the suckers off. Now, some would argue and say that you get more on a single line and it keeps it all nice and clean than you do on a on a multi-bush plant. And you may or may not be right, but the thing is that I feel that with my fence being right there, and you can see where the sun line is coming over, and then I have this tree, I tend to allow the vegetation to get a little heavier, and I like it a little more widespread, because especially as the winter month is coming in and the light is getting less, that these plants are able to absorb as much light as possible. I've normally let them get above the trellis. This year I'm not going to, because I actually have an intent on trying to carry these over onto the February season. meaning that I actually am probably going to plan on putting some 6 mil plastic over this whole structure to save them from frost, which normally comes in around February. It almost came this season a little early on a freak weather storm a couple days ago, but indeed these plants survived just fine. Going through the plants right here, I could easily spot some areas that might be the beginnings of some early blight. So I'm going to pick him off. I'll show you guys something real quick here. You see the concentric circle there with the yellow? There's the focus. There we go. That right there is early blight. And this is why I come out in the morning. I want to see if I can spot something that's outside of the norm in the plants. And if you hear a little gurgling in the background, that's my system coming on. So early blight is if it's caught early, it's not a big deal. Like this, I got no other signs of it on the rest of my plants that I could see at this moment. But if it's here and it's showing up in this leaf, it's indefinitely present throughout the leaves. So I will come back tonight and I'll probably spray the plants with like a liquid copper or some other choice fungicide that is OMRI compliant, like an organic compliant. I will now no longer touch my plants after getting this leaf, and I'm going to go ahead and wash my hands before I come back here and touch these again, obviously throughout the day. And before I even come out here again today, I will go wash my hands. So right there, here I am walking through just showing a video with you guys, and I'm already spotting certain things. In fact, I see a couple of instances already on the bottom, but that right there, if my knowledge base is correct, that's early blight. Now, there's another really devastating disease called late blight, which if I had it on one of these plants, I would have ripped it out and sprayed the whole thing in copper. I would have stopped, no problem, ripping this whole plant out if I would have saw any signs of late blight. Late blight is a little more oblong. You don't really get the yellow halo. It's a bigger problem. It will kill all the plants probably in under a week. When you get late blight, you really can't stop it. Late blight comes on between hot and cold. So right now, we're getting a lot of nice cool weather at night, a lot of hot weather during the day. This is actually a really good time for late blight. That's why I'm pretty vigilant about my fungicides right now. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and throw him out in the garbage. But, overall, everything's going really, really well. But I just want to kind of share this video with you as far as discussing what to do. Now, as far as, if you don't know if something's late blight or early blight, I do want to share something with you. Take this leaf right here and put this, and this is a tip given to me by a friend of mine, Ombre Hanford. Whoops. Let me see here. Take this leaf right here, put it with a small, lightly damp paper towel, put it in a plastic bag, and keep it in a warm area for no more than 24 hours. If you see this leaf grow an outward white fungus, that's late blight, you got a problem. If it doesn't, it's early blight. I, however, am not questioning whether this is late blight or not, or early blight, because I can see the concentric circle. And in fact, I could even be wrong, so I'm going to double check this with my pictures from this video. Sorry, I'm trying to get into focus here. This could be bacterial spot, but I'm almost 100% possible that's early blight. So, again, early blight's controllable. It technically is not curable, but it's controllable, especially at this early stage, as long as I keep on it. Now, how much fungicide am I going to put on here? I'm actually going to rotate, okay? I'm going to rotate copper and probably serenade through this entire thing. I'm also going to be laying down potassium silicate and something known as green cure, okay? That changes the pH level of the leaves. That takes care of them. I will tell you, I have not run copper in about a year or two, and I've been sticking to more, how can I say, more biological and more pH related fungicides, just because it's not that copper isn't safe, it's just that copper stains, and I always have a tendency to dye some of my clothes at some point, or my hands look like a Smurf when it's done. So I'm not a real huge fan of it just from a mess standpoint. Yes, I could use gloves, just don't always get around to it. But it's not a bad thing to do. And I'll probably lay down my first layer of copper over the whole thing, and then I'll probably follow up in a week with some green cure, which mostly is by potassium bicarbonate. It has a couple other things into it as well. And I'll probably follow up with some Serenade, meaning that when you do fungicides, it's really important that you do things on rotation. If you don't, there could be some things that you're not getting, and some things will develop an immunity to the other one. So by keeping it in rotation, it really keeps a really what's the word I'm looking for? You're keeping the bacteria and the fungus in check. Especially with me being under this massive oak tree, which is probably just teeming with problems and all this moss. It's just natural for that crap to happen. One other thing, potassium silicate. Before I do anything here, I'm probably going to go ahead and spray down some potassium silicate. Again, been using it for years. Don't buy the liquid stuff. It's a waste of money. Go to buildasoil.com and get some AGSIL 16H, which is just a water-soluble potassium silicate. You don't need a lot. Buy like a pound of it. It's all you need. And they use like 0.5 grams per gallon. That's about the average rate for whether you're putting it in here or doing, I think it's closer to 0.25 when you're doing it foliar. Now, why would you do potassium silicate for inside the reservoir? Well, you see these massive stems that are coming out? See how strong they are? That's a big stem. That's my pinky finger. Okay, it creates strong stems. There's no getting around it. I've used it for a year now, and radical difference. I mean, there's a monster one coming out right now, and that's very helpful with your stem growth and just stem rigidity and cell wall rigidity. Just a number of things, right? The other thing is when you spray it on the top here, it creates like a glass, and that keeps bugs from wanting to mess around with you. So, you know, and the other thing is that just like the potassium bicarbonate, it also creates a pH difference on the leaves. So when the pH is higher on the top here, when the pH is, oh gosh, I just did exactly what I said I wasn't going to do, which was touch the plants. So I just picked that off. When you and I just realized I put my finger up to the stem. No big deal. I'll deal with it, but bad habit. But the potassium silicate creates like a literal shield on the leaves, and it's not like DE where it actually diatomaceous earth where it actually cuts the bugs, but it creates like a little bit of a glass coating of the leaves, and they just don't like being around it. And it also adds a little bit of potassium through a foliar feed, so you really can't go wrong with it. I'm not having any growth problems, so I'm not really doing it for that purpose. I just want to keep the pH in check, so that ultimately, by keeping the pH in check, meaning at higher pH levels on the leaf surface, I don't have to worry about as much of a problem with bacteria, because fungus and bacteria won't grow in high pH environments. It just doesn't happen in an alkaline environment. So if you guys have any more questions, again, kind of a little boring early morning video, just kind of rambling on here, don't hesitate. But as far as everything else goes, I mean, it's just getting some monster growth through here. And if you have any questions, I'd like to share what I'm doing, because I want everybody to be successful. And just as a reminder, I've only been doing this for 3 years, and I've learned a lot, and I've been taught a lot, and I just want to share the knowledge. So you guys have a great day. Thank you for joining me this morning. Bye-bye.